really going to wrestle with tonight. A story that James uses in his book, which I have here. I reread this every year, so I've read this probably 7 or 8 times and given away. This isn't my original book because it was all marked up. I keep giving my book away, and I have to buy another one. But he talks about the British cycling group in 2003. They were the worst cyclers in the world. Like, they couldn't win anything, right? And that's a little embarrassing. And so they hired this gentleman to change their trajectory of losing every race. And he put this concept that we're going to kind of go over and over and over tonight. He put this into play. I think we have an extra. Can we give this to the lady that just came in?
I suppose we could give.
So he started working on this idea of incremental change. Instead of saying we're going to do this one big thing that's going to make us all the best riders, he said, what if we change 1% of all sorts of things, and that accumulating effect could be big, couldn't it? And so people agreed. Well, whether they agreed or not, they hired him. Here's the kinds of things that he did. I'm going to read them. I had to write them down because there's so many. I used to try to go from memory, but he tested, well, no, before that, he redesigned the bicycle seat to make it more comfortable and better for power. He tested different fabrics in the wind tunnels to reduce drag. He improved helmet aerodynamics. He selected lighter and more efficient bike frames. He, listen to this, rigorously cleaned bike chains to reduce friction. He used alcohol wipes on tires to improve grip. He optimally fitted the bike to each rider. He standardized warm-up routines and cool-down routines. He refined endurance training intervals. He improved race strategy and pacing plans. He customized nutrition plans for each rider. He optimized the timing of meals and fueling. He improved hydration protocols. He brought in, listen to this, and I think if you watched any of the Olympics, you saw some of these ads. He brought in better pillows and mattresses.
Oh, yeah.
So the athletes got better sleep, and we're going to have a sleep program. And he educated the athletes on sleep routines and sleep hygiene. The list is so long, I'm going to speed through it. He taught proper hand washing technique. He reduced exposure to illness during travel. I'm just skipping around here. He measured tiny performance changes instead of only big outcomes. He created a culture of continuous improvement. One thing I thought was really interesting. He painted the inside of all of the vehicles that transported their bikes pure white. Who would have ever thought of that? So they could see any speck of dust that was on anything, right? These are all small, incremental. He built systems rather than relying on motivation. And he emphasized consistency over intensity. So what did all this gain? Right? If you took one or two of these, you'd be like, eh. If you took all of them together, right? They became the top cycling team in the world in 5 years. Top. Winning everything in 5 years. So it wasn't one big thing. You didn't come in and everyone got thicker legs, right? Because he fed them some special diet. It was the 1% changes multiplied over time in lots of different ways. So that's really the foundation and core of what we're talking about tonight. And I want you to keep that story in your mind as we move forward through this. The next, here we go. I love this idea of behavior change, and I'm going to just skip to the next slide here. there's two ways that you can kind of live your life, you might say. You can live your life on outcome-based habits or identity-based habits. And I'll just simplify this chart. An outcome-based habit means that I want to do A or B by this time, at this speed, or whatever it is that I'm working on, right? I set a goal, and I try to achieve that, okay? The other way you can live your life is on an identity. You look inside yourself and you find out who you are in this category. Let's use an example. I started my life as a PE teacher. Okay? So fitness was very important to me. So my fitness stayed with me through my whole teaching career, right? Because I worked out with the kids, ran with the kids, worked out with the kids. I wasn't that coach that pointed and just watched, right? But when I got into administration, suddenly my job wasn't making me work out. And so I had to start to shift over to this identity that I am a fit person, right? And if I identify myself as a fit person, that means that all my choices throughout the day and the week and the month and the year are generally going to be a vote towards being a fit person because I identify as a fit person, right? And that changes over my life. As a PE teacher, that was easy to accomplish, right? Well, when I got into administration behind the desk in the classrooms, that was harder. But it's much more motivating, and it stays with you much more powerfully if you live your life from an identity and you work your way out to your goals rather than the other way around. It's much more sustainable, right? So, I'm going to have you pair and share now. I've talked for a few minutes. I want you to pair and share with the person at your table. I want you to pick one identity in your life and share what that identity is with the person at your table and what that means for you, right? Just pick one. We have lots of identities. I'm a husband, right? I'm a father. I'm a church member. I'm an employee, right? I'm a competitive shooter, right? These are different identities that I have. Just pick one and talk to your partner about it.
You start.
All right. All right. I'm going to pick on the back table. One of you share the identity that you shared with the group. You can't share someone else's identity. Just if one of you want to volunteer or voluntold, what identity did you share and why? Totally volunteer.
I picked him up.
Okay. And why did you pick that?
Well, I didn't know if we were supposed to ascribe a descriptive word to that, like good mom, bad mom, angry mom, you know.
Oh.
I picked mom because I am around my daughter a lot, so she's a huge piece of my life and hard to navigate if I'm doing a good job, if I'm succeeding at my title.
Okay.
So that's why I picked mom.
So interesting, because you can say mom, and that's generic, but then all those other versions of mom, right, could be an identity, right? An angry mom. I'm just angry all the time at my kids. Just, why did I have kids?
No.
Right? So I'm glad you were wrestling with that.
Yeah.
All right. One of you want to share an identity?
Oh, I just said I like to keep learning things all the time.
Okay, so you're a learner, lifelong learner. And look, he's at a seminar. So, is being here tonight casting a vote for or against that identity? For. Okay. So your identity as a mom,
Yeah.
all the interactions you have with your daughter are casting a vote for that identity. And you talked about negative or positive or maybe neutral in one direction or another, right? Every interaction is casting a vote for that. And if hundreds of interactions are positive and healthy, right, then your identity would logically be a healthy mom. Good parent, right? If the majority of those votes towards that identity are negative, then your identity is probably a challenging parent. Maybe one that needs some work. Okay, fantastic. Anyone else want to share? You're like, I wish he'd ask about my identity. Do you want to share?
Okay. I was doing it for you.
You can share either way,
Well,
if
I
you don't mind.
was going, so you share.
Yeah.
I was going to share.
Yeah.
I share yours. Okay. I like cooking nutritious foods
Oh.
and teaching others how to cook nutritiously, and that there's an alternative to different types of protein. I started that in 1981 when I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And what God showed me through prayer and fasting, I did not take chemotherapy at the time, and the Lord just showed me, and I trusted in the Lord. Claimed Psalms 103, and it's been over 45 years now. So I'm going to cook healthy.
Now, in 45 years, have you cast a lot of votes towards that identity?
Yes.
Right? That is amazing. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing. Let's give her a hand for sharing. So now when I see you, I'm going to see an identity that I didn't know about. I'm going to think, oh, there she is. Nutritious cook. Life cook coach. I mean, you can think of different words, but see how that works? That's fantastic. Okay, and if, just for the fun to play around with this a little bit, if you were to be consistently eating at McDonald's every day, would those votes be towards your nutritious identity, or would those be votes against it?
It used to be 4 because the only thing I would eat at McDonald's was
Okay.
their salad, but
Okay.
they did away with their salad.
So there was something nutritious that you could
they
eat
used
there.
to have a salad.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
That didn't work. I'm trying to think of a place that only has bad food. She completely ruined my analogy.
Well,
What did you say?
I said now it's McDonald's.
Yeah, there's no salad, right? So you can see that how we vote every day in multiple ways either moves us towards that particular identity or away from that. And so This is again that idea, this repetitious, right? 1%, 1% over and over and over, moving us in directions. Okay, very cool. It'd be fun to have heard from everyone, an identity from everyone. You know, each of us probably has 10, 12, 15 identities. I named like 7 of mine. And I could probably name more. I think one surprised you a little bit. You heard competitive shooter. I do. I shoot competitively. Regional, state, and regional level.
What do you shoot?
It's a handgun.
Okay.
Yeah, handgun. Okay. So, another little quote, major quote from our author. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So this was one of the pieces when I started on this journey that really captured my attention, and that is this idea that when they study, so I grew up in a home where I was free range. Does everyone know what free range parenting is? I was free range parented. Okay, and so I loved it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But when you're raised in a free range environment, you're not taught a lot of like life skills and how to organize and plan and execute. I mean, you just home, by dark, and those were my boundaries, right? So, and look, I made it to adulthood. So this idea of rising, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. As I got into adulthood, I didn't have a lot of systems in place, right? And this is where I started to realize, man, like, I missed something growing up. I couldn't put my finger on it. You know, I remember in high school, my first English class, everyone was turning in an assignment. I was like, what? They said, oh yeah, she signed this 2 days ago, it's due today. And I was like, I was the only one that didn't turn one in, and I said, I need a system. So there was this girl that was pretty friendly, and she said, I can teach you how to remember when your assignments are due. And we went to the library, and she taught me the concept of a planner. This was amazing. It was the first time I'd seen a planner at age 14. Okay? So when the researchers study groups of people, what they've discovered is people that are high achievers and appear to have this highly disciplined life, right? I used to look at those people and just salivate and think, how are they so disciplined and they have so much grit and determination? Well, the reality is, the researchers say they aren't any more gritty or determined than anyone else. What they have is systems and habits that are in place that just move them in these directions, right? I was like, wow, this is amazing. I wish I would have learned this 30 years earlier. So, our brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort, called chunking. Did you know that 40% of everything you do in a day, or over a week or a month, you do without thinking? Is that not amazing? 40% of what you do without thinking. Remember the very first time you were given the keys to your mom or dad's car, or however you got in that car, and you had to back out of the driveway? I mean, think of how many things you were thinking of. You're like, okay, seatbelt, if that was a seatbelt era. Seatbelt, okay, adjust my mirrors, start the car. Oh, I didn't adjust this mirror. Okay, reverse. Remember how like mechanical and nervous you were, and then you put it in reverse, and your foot's on the brake. Okay, now I take my foot off the brake. Do I put it on the gas or just let the car roll? Like you were thinking through all of these motions that you had to do. How many, when they backed their car out tonight, had to think through all of these? You didn't, right? Like seatbelt and reverse cameras now, right? How about brushing your teeth? Remember as a little tot, you know, get into the bathroom, then you had to get the little stool to brush your teeth, put it on. Now you just brush your teeth without even thinking. Your brain is constantly scanning the environment and saying to itself, hey, if I can turn this into a habit, I don't have to think about it anymore. And that frees your brain up to do other things. Your brain is doing this nonstop, 24/7, 7 days a week, all year long. It's looking for ways to chunk things and then make them automated so you never have to think about it again. Wouldn't it be great if we could develop positive habits that were so automated that we just did them? And we're going to learn tonight how to do that. That's what's exciting about this. Is you remember in the 90s, the computers? You had to install software on them. You had the little floppy drives, and that software would come in and you play around with it. This is what we can do for our brain. We can install software and teach our brain to do things that we've always wanted to do without fail. Okay, so here we go. The first handouts, and I don't normally give handouts ahead of time, because as a teacher, the first thing you do when you give handouts, you give them all, and the kids are looking through them, and they don't listen. And so, because you're adults, I give you all the handouts. But this is the first handout I want you to take a look at. Okay? So, the habit loop. There's 4 stages of habit. They're best described as a feedback loop. They form an endless cycle that is running every moment you are alive. This is just happening in your brain behind the scenes. It's called the habit loop. And continually predicting what will happen next and trying out different responses and then learning from the results. So your brain is running through this habit loop. Let's look at it. So the first part of the habit loop is a cue. Something triggers you. Now, if your cell phone were in your pocket right now and it vibrated or beeped, what would you probably do? And some of you are like, no, my cell phone's not even here. That's awesome. Generationally, you can see differences, right? My mom, she only turns her cell phone on if she's going somewhere in the car. And then I still can't get a hold of her. Well, I forgot to turn it on. So for her, that generation, the cell phone is just something you bring with you and turn it on if you are on the side of the road and your car is dead. Right? And you know the nuances as you get all the way to the Gen Zers. Their phone is never out of their hand. But the idea is this cue, the idea of a cue. Something triggers you. If you're driving past Dunkin' Donuts at 6 a.m. and the smell of the donuts are wafting out of Dunkin' into your vehicle's heating system, that could be a cue for you if you're a donut lover, which I am. I love donuts, probably my Scandinavian roots. But that's in conflict with I'm a fit person, right? So if every time I drive past a donut shop, I stop and get 6 dozen or 12 dozen donuts, you see this conflict? And if my votes are constantly for Dunkin' Donuts, then my identity as a fit person starts to go into the rearview mirror, and pretty soon I can't see my feet. So there's a cue, there's some kind of a cue in your environment that causes you to start to do a response without even thinking, okay? There's a craving, and we're going to talk about this more, the craving part a little bit more in a few minutes. But the concept here, I have to kind of jump ahead to explain craving, is when the whole cycle is working in a very dynamic, habitual way, the craving actually can occur before the cue, even though it's second in the cycle. The craving is an environmental thing, okay? But we'll get to that. Then you have a response. So you have a cue, a craving, a response. You do whatever it is you're going to do, right? If we're using the Dunkin' Donuts example, you pull in and you get your favorite set of donuts. Why would you buy just one? You buy 6. Okay, so there's a response, and then a reward. What do you think in this example the reward is? I'm using the Dunkin'.
Tasting the donuts.
Yeah, the taste, the dopamine hit in your brain, the sugar lights up the centers of your brain, just like cocaine. Sugar and cocaine are the same. They light up the same centers of the brain. And you get the reward, right? And then this loop can just... Of course, there's healthy cues too, and we're going to talk about that right now. So going back to my story, remember the emergency room? They said if you don't make some changes, you're going to die at a young age, high blood pressure, heart issues, overweight, etc. I said I know what I need to do. I knew for me what I needed to do. I needed to start faithfully working out. And so, having read the book, I'm like, how can I get my workout habit going, right? If I can turn working out into a habit, I think this would be a good thing for me. And so, I chose an interesting cue. I moved a little stand next to my bed, a small stand. My wife didn't really like the looks of the decor. And I placed on top of that my socks, my running shoes, my sweatpants, t-shirt, and a hat. And then I like gadgets, so my expensive little running watch. I put them right there. So the habit loop that I was creating was my cue would be when I swing my feet out of bed in the morning, here's my workout clothes, right? So that triggered, okay, put them on. So I put my workout clothes on, and then we would run the habit loop. Well, I built all this in advance, and I said, well, there's no craving there yet. Okay, skip past that. The response was to go out and run. Now, because I was a PE teacher, I knew how to do that safely and at the right intervals and all that. Okay, so that part was taken care of. And then the reward, I was like, well, what reward am I going to give myself for running? Running was my chosen activity. And I found online a healthy breakfast shake that's both yummy and healthy at the same time. It's got mango, blueberries, soy milk, blended. It's got some amla powder and flaxseed. So I was like, that's my reward, okay? So what happened, do you think the first day that I woke up and there was my workout clothes, do you think that was like, oh, the habit is in place? No, it was not, right? That first day I might have gone 3 or 4 blocks. But we're starting a pattern, right? And that's why I want to move to this next slide, because when you're starting a habit, a new habit, and tonight you're going to design a new habit. I have a sheet for you. I don't want you to get there yet. But when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. And you're like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Hear me out. Any habit that you want to start needs to take 2 minutes or less. And why? Here's why. If you are developing this elaborate habit that takes... So eventually, I started running for 45 minutes to an hour, right? That was way down the road. But do you think I was ready to run for 45 minutes on day one? No, I wasn't. What I was trying to do is build what? A habit. So, I think the very first day, if I remember correctly, I just put my workout clothes on. I went to the front door, and I was like, I'm good. I was home. It's in Maryland. I went back up, took my workout clothes off, and continued on my morning, right? 2-minute rule. That took me 2 minutes. I lived by this. My life depended on it. And so we forget this. We try to do these big plans. I'm going to work out for an hour and a half, 7 days a week. 31 days out of the month, 364 and a half days out of the year, right? And then within a few days, we've failed, and then we feel bad and we stop, right? So the next day, maybe I went as far as the mailbox. I wasn't worried about how far I went, right? I was trying to build a habit. And the next day, maybe down to the neighbor's driveway and back, right? And then I took a day off. The key is that I lived by this 2-minute rule, so that every morning when I woke up, the clothes were there, without fail. I had to do that the night before. I put them on, and then started at least the journey of running. And then the best part was, man, after a 2-minute run, right, made it to the mailbox and back, I got to have my breakfast shake. Breakfast shake. So awesome. Did I really earn it? No. But I was building that loop, right? The goal was to build that loop. And so, eventually, what do you think my identity became? We're jumping back to identity. We started with identity. After 2 years, and I'd lost 35 pounds, right? And my blood pressure, I had no blood pressure meds anymore. The doctor took me off them. He said, you don't need them. What do you think one of my identities was? Yes. I'm not just, at that time, I wasn't just a fit person. I was a runner. Now, and I'll get to this story in a minute, I still identify as a runner, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. So, identity is a much better place to be. Then you're talking with people, and you join a running club, and you're hanging out with people that run. Maybe on Sunday you're running with a group of people. And so that identity gets reinforced by the people you hang out with. I didn't hang out with people that were sitting at Dunkin' Donuts at 6 a.m., right? I hung out with people that were running. So I developed a habit and an identity, right? And so I want to share this graph. This all comes, from our author, James Clear. I want to share how this habit line works, and you can kind of walk through this in your own mind. We have the point A, right, where we've just started a habit. This is repetitions going this way, and this is automaticity going this way. And I don't think I photocopied you this, so I want you to draw it along with me. And what we have here is this was day one, right? When I sat up out of bed and put my running clothes on and I made it to the front door. But by 3 or 4 weeks, I was heading here towards B, and I don't even remember when I crossed the dotted line. I really don't. Because at some point, running just became a habit. Like I couldn't not run. And I wasn't one of those runners that's like, if I don't run, I'm just a terrible person. Like, I didn't become that. It just became a habit, right? I crossed that dotted line there, and now at point C, I had become a runner, and it was a habit, right? Do you think that I still needed to set my cue out in the morning? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
You know how long I had to set my running clothes out? For a whole year, I set my running clothes out. An entire year. I just didn't want to, I was afraid that if I didn't, the habit would get undone. But guess what? On year 2, did I need to set my running clothes out? I didn't. Because, remember I said we would get back to this point in the cue, and the habit had been so formed that I now had a craving to run before the cue ever happened. Okay, so when I would get up in the morning, I didn't need to see the clothes sitting there because my brain was already saying, you're a runner, you need to go run. Craving was occurring, and this is a good craving, right? And then all the rest of it would happen. I would still give myself the reward. You know, if I didn't do the breakfast shake, I did, you know, like oatmeal with no flavor. It didn't matter that much anymore because the whole cycle was happening habitually. And what's the other reward here that occurs besides the shake? Once you have to
Endorphins.
Yes, right there, endorphins. So you're exercising, your brain's getting hit with those good endorphins. And I didn't need the shake. I didn't need it at all. Because my brain was already saying, woo, good job. You worked out and you feel good and you have energy. So, now does the craving make sense when we come back to it? So there it is. There's the habit line. The biggest question that people ask right here is, well, how many times does it take to form a habit? And you know what? There is no right answer to that. There's a misnomer that says just 21 times without fail and you've got a habit. That's not true. I've done things 21 times and didn't have a habit. Right? What you need to get in is your repetitions, right? If you're running your habit loop once a week, it's going to take months, right? If you're running a habit loop 3 times a day, it might only take 2 weeks. And so the key here is get your reps in, get your repetitions in, and never miss more than 2 times in a row. If you miss one, go the next day, or do whatever the habit it is you're developing. I'm just using running as the example. Okay, does that make sense? So, are you ready? Now you get to be involved. So in your packet, you have what we call a habit implementation template, and it's super complex. I want you to fill this habit implementation template in, and you can see that I will, and I'm just using myself an example, I will run at 5 a.m., that's the time I chose, in my neighborhood. Okay, so if I were filling this out during that time, it was a new habit that I wanted to develop. That's what I would have written. I want you to pick a habit that you want to develop and fill this in right now. You have 45 minutes. No. And I'm not going to ask you to share, so this is for you. Unless someone wants to share.
Can I do an answer?
Oh, yeah. You know what I'll do?
It's okay, I'm kind of joking.
If you leave me your email on the back of this page, just put your email on here and your name. I will send you these templates. They're free. They're online. They're a little hard to get to. But you kind of get access to them when you get the book. But
I have a copy of my home, or I can have them here at the library.
Sure.
Thank you.
So if you're worried about writing on the one that you have and you want to save it to photocopy, write your email down. I'll send you these templates. You can print them. Okay? All right, is there one person that wants to bravely share the habit that they just wrote down? Maybe it's one you've already kind of started on.
I'll share mine.
Yeah.
I said I will walk at daylight in town. Now, in the summer, it's easy, but winter, you just lose that because you can't, and the treadmill just ain't getting it.
So true.
Daylight savings is coming.
I like how you did that at daylight, because there's probably a safety component in that. You didn't just say 5 a.m. every day. You're like, no, I know I won't be doing 5 a.m. when the sun doesn't come up till 8:30 a.m. In January.
to have it at the same time every day for the cue.
This is interesting.
Does that
So you're
matter?
talking about timing. So our habits have all sorts of context, right? We have smells, tastes, we have things we see, times of day, right? That our habits can be triggered. And so I would say whatever it is you're trying to develop, put it at a time of day that it's more likely to grow. Like for me, because of my job, I got home late every night. I couldn't develop this running habit by saying I'm gonna run in the evening when I get home from work. I got home from work between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. It was never gonna happen, right? So it will help your cue, because part of your cue will be the time of day, right? When you get home from work, you walk in the door, it would be interesting to see what everyone's habits are. Some people plop down on the couch, hit the remote, and watch TV for the next 3 hours. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It might be neutral. It would be interesting to hear what each person's, that's like a time cue, right? You're off work, it's about the same time, you walk through the door, and what do? Feed the dogs. I don't know. So, yeah, I like what you're talking about. Okay, anyone else want to share? They're kind of proud of their habit, and they want to share. I don't want to leave anyone out, but I'm not pressing you. Okay. The next technique is my all-time favorite technique, and I've successfully implemented this, and so can you. And you might already be. The funny thing about this is there's probably a number of these things that you're kind of already sort of doing. And so it's called habit stacking. This is so awesome. And here's what habit stacking is. You already have a whole bunch of habits, right? Your life's full of habits. In fact, you have a blank sheet where you're going to, we have time, you're going to write down all of your habits that you can think of. It's kind of fun. But habit stacking is this. After this particular habit, it's already in place, I'm going to, and then you insert a new habit, okay? My example was this. And this accomplished two things. I was like, I always want to improve my marriage, right? My relationship with my wife. I always want to be doing better than yesterday. Improving, right? I was like, what one thing, using this habit stacking form, I was specifically using this, I was like, what could help my marriage? And my wife loves, so her love language is acts of service, right? So that's very important to her. I could buy her diamond rings and she'd be like, oh, thank you. Wouldn't be that big a deal. She'd probably sell it. Pay a bill or something. But she loves acts of service, right?
Amen.
And so I was like, I'm in charge of a number of things in the household. I do household chores, thank you. Even though I was raised in a household where the men didn't do those things, I said that. Well, I married someone who said that won't work.
Yay.
But I was happy to have that not work. So it's never been an issue. But again, I wasn't that great at it, right? So I was like, I want to develop this habit that will make my wife happy. And it'll be nice for the house, because I'm in charge of floors. For some reason, the bathroom floor was just a place I could never get to. I did all the other floors faithfully, pretty faithfully. I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to use this habit stacking method? And so I said, okay, wait a minute. I already have a habit. I go into the shower. I'm not into the shower. I stand outside of the shower. I turn the hot water on, right? And you can just stand there and waste time and wait for the hot water to get hot, right? Or you could stack a habit right there, right? I mean, I shower every day. Praise the Lord. I shower every day. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. What I'll do is I'll stack a habit right there where I'm waiting for the water to get hot. So the next thing I had to do is get those little Clorox wipes, right? put them under the sink. Because my first day I attempted to do that, there were no Clorox wipes. Because what I realized is I'm really good at deep cleaning. But the problem is I don't do that often enough to make my wife happy. So I needed something that was very repetitious. So I was like, oh, if every day for 30 seconds while the water's heating up, I just wipe a portion of the bathroom floor, like I'll be the happiest wife in the world. So that's what I did. I got the wipes, turned the hot water on, and I had to give myself a little note the first few times to remember I'm stacking a habit in there, right? And I was like, ooh, I started wiping the floors. You know, and they got a little corner done the first day, but the next day and the next day, and if you do that repetitiously, right, you have a pretty clean bathroom floor. I remember my wife one day, it took her a while to notice, which we talked about that. She was like, man, that bathroom floor just seems like it's clean all the time. I was like, of course, I'm in charge of floors, honey. I didn't tell her what I had done, that I'd stacked a habit inside of a habit that I already had, and that habit not only made it for a clean bathroom, right? It made for a happy wife. So it's like a 2-for-1 deal. That was the easiest habit for me to ever develop in my life because of the habit stacking concept. You embed a habit inside of a habit you already have. So, habit stacking time for you. You have a form. This says, after blank current habit, I will blank new habit. Take a few minutes and write one in there. Be super small, ginormous, whatever you have in mind. And then a brave person or two share their habit stacking. This ends at 7:15.
7:30.
Oh, 7:30? We're doing awesome. 7:15?
You can try to go until maybe 20, 25 after, because we got to
Okay.
have everything put away.
We're almost done. I only have one more slide,
Yep, you're good.
and I have some homework for people they can take with. All right. Do we have one person to share their habit stacking idea? I know it's hard to think these things up. Yes, sir.
Well, I like studying the Bible.
Okay.
I study the Bible, and I will share those studies with other folks.
Oh, how are you going to do that?
Well,
Text.
text. I like last night or a couple nights ago, I went through the Bible and put down every word that Christ said, starting from Matthew into Acts and into Revelation. Oh, it also I think it was in John.
Wow.
And I got it where it's in the Bible, and I can have the highlights, and I can send that to folks. See, and
So let me-
it's the truth. See,
Let me ask you a question.
what's that?
If you share from your own personal devotion every morning, because you're going to stack a habit, right? You already got the other habit.
Right.
Would you say that at the end of 365 days, you might have a new identity that could be like gospel sharer extraordinaire?
I think so. That's what I'm hoping.
Or whatever term you want to come up with, your identity will change over time. Because
Sure.
when you do personal devotions, that grows you. But when you share, it grows and helps others.
Absolutely.
So it'll be fun to ask you in a year from now about your identity
Sure.
as a gospel sharer.
Sure.
Okay.
I believe in it.
All right. Anyone, one other person want to share habit stacking that they're going to do? Go.
So, this is something actually I tried to, at some point, I think before I learned about habits, I was just trying to have a so I would have a bottle of water in my car, and then every time I get to a stoplight, I always grab my phone. So I was like, I'll try not to grab my phone. I'll just take a sip of water at every stop.
That is so cool.
Everyone has that habit, right?
Because you have to stop at a light or you'll be in jail.
Yeah.
So you have
By
to,
law, it is a habit.
so literally when you press the brake on your car, your brain is already queuing up to drink that water. And then just repeating that until eventually you press on anything and you're going to be looking for water. Step on someone's toe. Look for water. Okay, that's very cool. I did another habit stacking one just on this theme of getting fit again. I never liked to stretch, even as a PE teacher, I didn't like to stretch. But as I got older and I was a runner, identity runner, I got to stretch. So I did the habit stack. I said, well, where am I going to stack a habit to stretch? So oatmeal was a big part of my breakfast, right? Besides the shake, oatmeal. And oatmeal takes how long to cook when you do like steel cut oats? I put it in boiling water.
6 to 7 minutes.
Or maybe less. Maybe I was cheating.
If you start with hot water, I start with hot water,
Okay.
it cuts it down. Instead of letting
I
it
must
boil.
not have been cooking mine well enough. Oh no, I know what it was. How long does it take water to boil?
Probably
2 minutes.
Is it 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's about 2 minutes. So I needed remember the 2-minute rule? If you're going to start a new habit, it can only take 2 minutes. Where's 2 minutes? Oh, it takes 2 minutes for my water to boil for the oatmeal. So, water pot, water, burner on. I got 2 minutes. Right there in the kitchen, I would stretch. And then the 2-minute rule kicked in, right? And pretty soon I would stretch all the way through the oatmeal cooking. And then I turned it off. I keep stretching till the oatmeal got cold. But you see how that habit stacking worked in this description that I'm giving. So it's pretty cool to see how habit stacking is so helpful. In fact, someone like me who's ADD, I use habit stacking more than just starting a new habit because I need that in my life. All right, final slide. This is my favorite slide, and James doesn't really talk about this too much. He alludes to it, but this was the most powerful thing that happened to me, and it can happen to anyone, and it's the concept of a keystone habit. And well, what is a keystone habit? Did you know they've done studies that people that make their bed, it starts a domino effect in their life, and just other things happen that are just better. If you make your bed, you'll have a better life. They've done the research. That's the concept of a keystone habit, and I love the domino. Is when you build this one habit, it starts a domino effect in your life that affects everything. And so I go back to my situation. This was what was so transformational for me. What do you think, and this is a trick question, when I started working out in the morning and my life turned around and I got healthy again, what do you think was the keystone habit that was transformational for me in my story? Okay, you're close. You're close. And this was a trick question because I haven't spoken about it on purpose because I knew this slide was coming. My keystone habit.
I was gonna say, telling yourself the night before you're gonna do it.
Closer. The keystone habit was getting up at 5 a.m. Okay? And that's what I said. So with my job as a principal, there was no other time in my day that I could work out. I was be at school ahead of the teachers, shake all the kids' hands as they come through the door. Evening meetings till 8 or 9 o'clock. I wasn't going to work out after work. And during the day, it's a principal's life. I knew I had to work out at 5 a.m. That was the Keystone Habit. And that's a whole other presentation. But I got an entire book on how to get up at 5 a.m. You know, there's a book written. It's called The 5 a.m. Revolution. Get up. It teaches you how to get up at 5 a.m. Now, I'm not a normal morning person. So some of you are like, oh, well, that's fine. You're a morning person. Good on you. I hope you enjoyed at 5 a.m. Well, I sleep for 2 more hours. No, I'm not actually a 5 a.m. person. But reading this book taught me how to get up at 5 a.m. I won't give that presentation. But you could buy the book. In fact, I think it's free on one of the Kindles or whatever. It's called The 5 a.m. Revolution. That's what started the domino effect for me. Because if I got up at 5 a.m., I had time to run. I had time for personal devotions. I had time to eat a healthy breakfast. What do you think all those dominoes were doing for my body and my mind? I come to work much healthier. I worked out. How do you think my relationships were impacted with my teachers? Better. They probably would agree with you. He was nicer. Do you see how those dominoes just started to fall? And then, you know, if you get up and run at 5 a.m., how many donuts do you think you're going to eat when you go past Dunkin' Donuts? All of a sudden, you're going to be like, you start to turn in, and you're like, wait, I know how many miles I can run to work off one donut. Like I calculated that. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Creamer in your coffee. All of a sudden, I'm like, I was a coffee drinker back then. It's like, read the calories on that creamer thing. I'm like, oh, I have to run 3 miles to work off that 2 tablespoons of creamer? Like, forget it. So you can see how that domino effect occurred in my life. It affected everything. How do you think my relationships with my kids and wife were impacted?
Very positive.
Right? And then when people you are leading are happier, what do you think that does for your promotional ability? You see how this just domino effect. So my challenge for you is this. The fact that you're here listening to a habit presentation probably means this is something you're already interested in, or you're just trying to be nice and support me. What habit in your life could you start that would push all these dominoes down in your life and really create a new version of you that maybe you've always dreamed of? That's my challenge to you. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. So the way it works here, instead of at the back, instead of them going like this, like forward, they just actually start putting everything back. And pretty soon you won't have a chair. So, I do want to share this with you. It's in your packet. I just want to describe what it is, okay, before you run off. This is great. Now, you won't know what everything means, but it's how to create a good habit, the steps, and how to break a bad habit. This really breaks down what I said. What would be fun if we had like an hour and a half is to start to go through all of these together and explaining each one of these steps. There's a lot to this, but that's like an hour and a half, 2-hour presentation.